Hey, my name's Knox, and today I'm going to tell you about the suspect in the murder of a millionaire who headed the notorious insurance company UnitedHealthcare. In the mysterious shadows of the Neapolitan streets lies the story of Luigi Mangione, a man who went from an ordinary citizen to a key figure in one of the most high-profile trials of our time. Who is he really? An innocent victim of circumstances, or a cunning criminal who's been playing on the edge of the law for a long time? Enjoy the show. Recent events in the world of crime are once again grabbing public attention. This weekend, Italian entrepreneur Luigi Mangione will stand trial for the murder of Brian Thompson. This story, full of confusing circumstances, began several months ago and caused a storm of emotions in society. Luigi Mangione, until recently a well-known philanthropist and respected businessman, now faces serious charges that could result in life imprisonment. At first glance, an impeccable reputation was destroyed by a high-profile accusation that could not be ignored. Details of the case remain secret, but it is known that the prosecution's case is based on evidence found at the crime scene and the testimony of several witnesses. Nevertheless, Luigi's defenders are confident in his innocence, claiming that the case is based on unverified information and speculation. The upcoming trial will be a pivotal moment in Mangione's fate and a test for the judicial system. Many expect it to reveal the truth behind the tragic death of Brian Thompson. This trial promises to be long and complicated, and its consequences could change many lives. Many expect it to reveal the truth about the tragic death of Brian Thompson. This process promises to be long and difficult, and its consequences could change the lives of many people. Luigi Mangione is in a major legal battle, drawing attention from federal and local police. The murder charge makes him vulnerable. The police, through investigations, gathered evidence against him. The murder and stalking charges put him in an extremely vulnerable position. The police, through thorough operations and investigations, have gathered a number of pieces of evidence against Mangione. This evidence includes surveillance footage, witness testimonies, and physical evidence found at the crime scene. Luigi Mangione was arrested on Fifth Avenue after hours of surveillance. The SWAT team took him down in a stylish operation as he was about to leave Manhattan. The Manhattan District Attorney is preparing an indictment with detailed evidence and testimonies. They plan to present the case in state court, expecting a high-profile trial that will draw press and public attention. The question is whether Mangione's defense can refute the facts or if he faces a harsh sentence. They intend to present the case in state court, expecting it to be a high-profile trial, attracting attention from both the press and the public. The only question is whether Mangione's defense will be able to refute the presented facts, or if he's facing an inevitably harsh sentence. This case reveals the complexity of the justice system, where every element can be decisive in the fate of the accused. Luigi Mangione is embroiled in a legal mess. Charged with murder and possible terrorism, he faced jurisdiction issues. His lawyers strategized against conflicts as federal authorities equated his actions to terrorism. Accused of murder with possible terrorist motives, he immediately faced dual jurisdiction. This situation only complicated his defense, requiring his lawyers to come up with strategies against conflicting interests. Federal authorities insisted that Luigi's actions were tantamount to acts of terrorism, as his actions allegedly affected the interests and safety of several states. Meanwhile, state officials argued that his actions should be viewed as ordinary murder, which would allow them to apply their criminal code, since his actions allegedly affected the interests and safety of several states. Meanwhile, state authorities argued that his actions should be treated as common murder, which would allow them to apply their criminal code. The clash of the two legal systems has led to numerous delays and legal disputes. Imagine a tangled web of bureaucracy, where both federal and state agencies are trying to use this case to strengthen their influence. Luigi Mangione may not have expected his name to become a byword for the legal debate over dual jurisdiction, but he still found himself at the center of this unique standoff. As for the outcome of his situation, no one can predict it. But his case will surely be remembered as a precedent for future court battles at the intersection of state and federal laws. Luigi Mangione, whose name has popped up multiple times in court documents and police reports, found himself at the center of intense scrutiny from federal authorities. It's no coincidence that he was placed in a federal detention center instead of the infamous Rikers Island. This decision raised questions for many who were following the story. The reason Mangione was turned over to federal jurisdiction was because of the seriousness of the charges against him. Luigi was suspected of large-scale crimes, concerning not only the violation of state laws, but also the threat to the integrity and security of the country. These were accusations that were difficult to escape, even with what they call strong connections. The feds decided that Mangione's case required stricter oversight and conditions that only a federal facility could provide. Here he was under round-the-clock surveillance, cut off from the usual street freedom. Every step he took was recorded, every thought seemed to be subject to control. The authorities' decision to place Luigi in such conditions was clearly dictated not only by a desire for justice, but also by a desire to keep under control someone who had felt untouchable for too long. Luigi Mangione always knew that playing on the edge of the law could lead to fatal consequences, but he was filled with a sense of untouchability. Even though the death penalty was abolished in New York State in 2017, he took the risk, believing it was just a scary myth from the past. However, the federal government of the United States has powers that extend beyond the states and their laws. By intervening in Luigi's case, the federal authorities began to bring all of his dark secrets to light. Charges related to organized crime and corruption threatened Luigi with the dreaded prospect of a run-in with federal laws, where the death penalty could well be considered. Luigi understood that if it went to trial, he could become a victim of federal justice. His lawyers were desperately trying to prevent that, but the wheels of justice were turning relentlessly. For Mangione, this became a test of fate where the stakes were just too high. His lawyers tried desperately to prevent this, but the legal machinery moved inexorably. For Mangione, it was a test of fate where the stakes were too high. The question of how easily the death penalty can be applied in a country where it was once widespread suddenly became way too personal for a guy who once thought he was above the law. The importance of transparency in court proceedings continues to be a hot topic of discussion. The recent case of Luigi Mangione has revived this age-old question. Luigi, who found himself at the center of the trial, drew attention not just because of his case, but also due to the very discussion about the court's format. On the one hand, people like Eric Soon and other journalists argue that transparency serves the public interest. They believe that a high degree of publicity allows society to see justice in action, which creates an atmosphere of trust and confidence in the system. They believe that cameras in the courtroom help raise public awareness and strengthen democratic principles. However, the presence of the media can distort the perception of the participants in the process. It turns out that there's pressure on witnesses and experts, which sometimes leads to sensationalism. The objectivity of information delivery is called into question when flashy headlines take the place of nuances and details. In the Luigi Mangione case, public opinion was divided, and the public trial showed both the strengths and weaknesses of the system. We're at a crossroads. Do cameras in the courtroom help or complicate? Luigi Mangione's story starts in Naples, where he grew up, learned about life, and pursued his dreams. The question remains open. Do cameras in the courtroom really help or just create unnecessary complications? The story of Luigi Mangione begins in the quiet streets of Naples, where he grew up, learned to understand life, and fought for his dreams. He grew up without a father, on a modest street, but with a mother who instilled in him a belief in justice and honesty. Luigi, following his mother's advice, moved to America with the hope of building a better life. Energetic and ambitious, he climbed the career ladder in healthcare management step by step until he landed a prestigious position at the esteemed company UnitedHealthcare. However, the sudden death of Brian Thompson, the CEO, hung over Luigi like a dark cloud, leaving him at the center of accusations. Accused of murder, Luigi denies everything, claiming he was the victim of bad promises in a ruthless world of corporate intrigue. Witnesses' words feel like nooses, but Luigi hopes for justice despite uncertainty and threat of life sentence. His heart doesn't know how many moments the courts will need to untangle this complex mess, but he believes in the best, despite the looming threat of spending eternity behind bars. A life sentence without the possibility of parole is a verdict he refuses to accept as the end of his story. Luigi Mangione is back in the spotlight as federal authorities have brought new terrorism charges against him. This man, whose name has long been associated with criminal activity, has become the subject of an even deeper and more dangerous investigation. The incriminating evidence speaks for itself. It includes not only recordings of threats directed at various government institutions but also detailed attack plans. Luigi had always known how to cheat the system, and it was his confidence in impunity that was even more shocking than his crimes. But now that federal authorities have gone on the offensive with new evidence, his position has become especially precarious. Penetrating the secrets of his dark empire became a matter of prestige for investigators, who expanded the pool of evidence and witnesses. As a man with an enviable knack for hiding in the shadows, he suddenly found himself in the spotlight, exposing his many deceptions. It'll be interesting to see how Mangione plans to respond to these charges and whether he can justify his notorious name in the criminal world, or if his dynasty will ultimately crumble under the weight of justice. Luigi Mangione, despite the public tension that arose, demonstrated surprising calm in the courtroom. His composure earned respect even from the harshest critics. Luigi's image was becoming a symbol of protest against the existing judicial system. People took to the streets to support him, believing that behind the facade of the trial lay deeper and more unjust mechanisms. The question of conducting a psychiatric examination of Mangione has acquired political overtones. Many believe that this was just a way to drag out the trial and distract attention from the real problems. Each session turned into a real battle, where lawyers and community representatives argued about how this case could set a precedent for future legal proceedings. Luigi's support grew every day, and this was influenced not only by his personal qualities, but also by the transparency with which he conducted his defense. He became a symbol of hope for renewal and rethinking of the legal system. This case has become a topic of discussion not only in courtrooms, but also in kitchens, on social networks, in journalistic articles, under aggressive interest and a desire for change. Luigi Mangione's case seemed typical. However, Luigi's lawyers sought to alter the trial's outcome. Soon Luigi's lawyers showed incredible resourcefulness and determination, aiming to change the outcome of the unfolding trial. Their defense strategy focused on the ideas that inspired Luigi, highlighting the ideological basis for his actions in hopes of getting a lighter sentence. At first glance, the prosecutors had irrefutable evidence of guilt, highlighting the ideological basis for his actions in hopes of getting a lighter sentence. At first glance, the prosecutors had irrefutable evidence of guilt. The evidence includes weapons as well as various records that Mangione was interested in. But, according to the defense, this evidence isn't as clear-cut as it seems. Lawyers argue that Luigi was guided by his convictions and not by a desire to break the law. They seek to show that his actions should be viewed through the prism of ideas and views that may have been good, although not always correct. The court, for its part, now faces a tough choice about where the freedom of ideological expression ends and the violation of the law begins. The answer to this question could set a precedent that defines the boundary between personal beliefs and the disruption of public order. Luigi Mangione found himself at the center of a legal and moral whirlwind, where the uncertainty of his fate intensified day by day. In the quiet offices of the prosecutor's office, new evidence was being discussed that could change the course of the case, even though the outcome still hung in a fog of uncertainty. Every piece of information gathered became a key to strengthening their arguments in the delicate game of accusations. The revelation of recently discovered evidence dramatically split public opinion, intensifying doubts and sparking heated discussions. Luigi's lawyers aimed to counter the prosecution. Daily pressure increased. The city, once distant, was now at the epicenter, split in support and condemnation. With each passing day, The pressure mounted, demanding resourcefulness and strategic flexibility from the defense to present Luigi in the best possible light before the court. The city, which was initially far removed from this confrontation, now found itself at the epicenter, divided in support and condemnation. The judge's role turned into a balancing act between the facts and the emotions of the public, as he had to make a fair decision under the watchful eye of society. Every step and every word could tip the scales. Everyone held their breath in anticipation. Every step and every word could tip the scales. Everyone held their breath in anticipation. Will fate show kindness to Luigi? Luigi Mangione, a man currently surrounded by a whirlwind of uncertainty, is living the mandate of judicial truth in a world where every action can be a turning point. The court and the lawyers will do everything they can to get to the bottom of this complicated case. You know where else we need pros? In our team. Friends, you have the chance to join our team. If you have video editing skills, you can voice videos in Russian, English, and other languages. Or write interesting scripts. We will be glad to work with you. Message the Telegram bot, link in the description. And thank you for your attention.